Greetings, it's me again, Erik Johnson, working through a series of 20 videos to lead you to help with a fish health outbreak. In other words, with video number 1, which was introductory, you could get kind of an overview of what's important in the assessment of sick and dying fish, and then we went through so far the first 9 considerations before you even think about a parasite, and now we're on number 10. And number 10 is the assessment of water movement or water flows. And right off the top of my head, I have a couple things to toss out there. For example, in a pond environment, if you put a leaf on the surface of a pond and that leaf moves around, chances are you've got enough water movement. That's sight unseen. If you go out to a pond situation where fish are sick and you put a leaf on the surface and it doesn't move at all. It doesn't bob, it doesn't rock, it doesn't slide across the surface, or, God forbid, there's a protein skin on the surface of the water. It looks like dust or has bubbles in it. Those fish are in big trouble. Koi especially and goldfish are river fish, believe it or not. You know how I know? Because they don't sit on nests. Riverine fish, like trout and carp, they deposit their eggs and they scatter them all over the place, and then they hatch and all that. They don't take care of the young. They just let them go. And riverine fish typically have torpedo-shaped bodies to draft the currents and draft rocks and that sort of thing. The origins of carp, while they do great in ponds, natural ponds, whatever, carp are tough, were initially engineered for rivers, which has water turnover, significant water turnover, fresh water all the time. Not necessarily clean. But, so what I'm getting at basically is for pond fish especially, but even indoor tropical fish, the water needs to move around to keep it fresh and mixed and degassing at the surface, give the fish a certain degree of exercise, make sure that there isn't much in the way of a thermocline during the summer, most parts of the year. Thermocline isn't bad. That's where the warm water's at the top and the cold water's at the bottom. Thermocline isn't the end of the world in winter. And that's hotly discussed across the board. Most of the time your pond's too small to have a thermocline, but don't worry about that. My point being is water movement. So, if you can hear the pond splashing from a waterfall and maybe a circulator, and you've got water movement where a leaf or something bounces around on the surface, even a little, where the surface isn't mirror smooth, you're probably okay in a pond environment. In a fish environment, like in a tropical fish tank or something, if you've got it to where when the fish stop swimming, they move a little in some sort of a kind of current, you're probably good there too. You don't want your fish in still water. Now, I say that, and some guy with an Amazon biotope keeping angelfish or discus or neons or something where the water is basically supposed to slowly percolate through such an environment, and the fish don't have to swim against a current very much. Note the body shape of the angelfish and the discus, for example. They're not much in the way of swimmers. They kind of hang. You should have still water for them, but that's a special situation. The average man or woman looking at this video probably needs some water movement, and that's all I'm saying is keep the water moving. Flow rates also relates to the amount of water moving through a filtration system at any given time, and ideally, and of course it varies depending on the size of the filter, if you could get all your water through a filtration system once an hour, that would be perfectly fine. In a fish tank of 10 gallons with the average pump, you're probably putting all that water through many times an hour, and that's okay too. In a pond, once an hour is fine. As long as water's moving, it could go through once every 5 hours. Who gives a crap? As long as water's moving around. For example, let's say you had a bog system, lots of media, Pocky shower, something like that, or a big lagoon or something that the water passes through for purification by beneficial bacteria. It doesn't have to move through there very fast if you are also moving water and oxygenating it by other means, other pumps, circulating pumps, and air stones. Well, my point being on item 10 then is assess water turnover. Make sure water's moving and the flow rates are good enough to get the water through a filtration system several times a day, and that the water surface especially is not stagnating. I think that's it for item 10, water flows. Let's move on to item 11.